All right, why don't we get started with the afternoon session? So we have 2 more sessions to go through. This session is going to start with Gerri Sinclair from University of Vancouver, British Columbia. She's going to talk about Super Mario's Mushrooms, the role of food in video games. She's the executive director of the Digital Media Program at the Center for Digital Media in Vancouver, British Columbia. She used to be the former manager of MSN Canada. And more interestingly, she's an advisor to the Canadian Video Games Awards. So if you're planning to prepare any video games, you know who to bribe. She has a deep understanding of the game arena and will share the state of the art on food-related games.
Thanks, everyone. It's great to be here, and I can see that there's been some attrition after lunch. Everybody imbibing food, consuming food, which is really the topic of my talk. When I was invited to give a talk, they said to me, choose anything. You can talk about anything. And I came up with the idea of looking at the role of food in video games. It was sort of a whim. Just thinking about Pac-Man, because when you think about video games, you just kind of think about Pac-Man. And how Pac-Man is really a big mouth. And what he's doing is consuming little pellets of food to give him energy and health. And I thought, well, you know, this might be a theme in video games. I play a little bit of World of Warcraft, and I know how important food is in that game. And I have a couple of cooking games. So I thought maybe I should take a look at how does food work in video games. And I found that there is so much. There's enough for several doctoral theses and certainly a week-long workshop. I have about 300 slides, but I brought them down to 60 or so. So I can't talk quite as quickly as Mark, but I can do a pretty good job. And so we're going to go through we're going to go through these in a very quick way. So just to give you a little taste of Pac-Man, 1980. It's the game that everyone thinks about when you think about you know, what is the most popular first video game. And of course, Pac-Man is an eating machine. He is the mouth, right? I understand in French, I'm not French, in Spanish, he's called Come Coco, which all, you know, sort of celebrates the role of eating in food. So, whoops. Let me just give you a little, sorry, this is not my computer, and I can't seem to get the mouse to go to, yeah, but there's no mouse showing up here on my screen here.
If you look at the screen, you see the mouse.
Oh, there's the mouse. Oh, good. I'll look up there and not down here. OK, so I don't even need this. There we go. Come on, baby. Can't hear it. Anyhow, you see him gobbling up the little pellets. He has to go for the big pellets. The big pellets will then allow him to hit the ghosts, and that's the way the game works. So there you go, the first theme of eat or die, and away we go. So in terms of looking at what are the characteristics of games that are you know, prevalent for all games that can be applied, of course, to video games, that games always involve some kind of an interaction. It's usually a social interaction. Of course, with a computer, you can play against the computer, but you could still argue that's a social interaction. There's always a challenge, a conflict, or some kind of competition. It's defined by very specific rules, which if you break, the game is over, it's destroyed. A game has an unpredictable and a measurable outcome, and there's usually a promise of a satisfactory ending. You can win the game, you can better your score, you can beat your opponent. Another thing that's really important is that it occurs in a space that's removed from the confines of everyday life, the playground, something that is removed from everyday life. And it produces, I love this one, it produces or promises unexpected moments of joy. So my question, which I'm not going to answer right now, is can you consider gastronomy a game? And I think that's a really interesting question. There's a researcher by the name of Joseph Huizinga from Holland who wrote a book called Homo Ludens, Man the Game Player. And he really emphasized that play takes place in a space separate from normal life, the magic circle of a game. And as I mentioned before, participating in a game requires that all players enter this world and abide by its rules. So I have some examples of playgrounds or these special worlds of games. And I've got the Barca Stadium, the hockey rink, the tennis court, the dart board, the baseball diamond. In the middle, the kitchen stadium for Iron Chef, the table tennis top, board games, bridge table, and so it goes. When you talk about computer games, the magic circle becomes a screen. And there are many, many different kinds of screens right now where you enter into the world of the screen, whether it's on your desktop, in your phone, in your pocket, or even on your TV console, and you're going into that magic world of the screen. I've got a couple of quotes from Ferran Adrià as I was thinking about the relationship between food and games. He says something very similar, right? Avant-garde cooking requires that people be willing to enter into another world. So it's in a way, it's the world of the game. He also says the most important thing in the world is to be happy, thinking about these moments of unexpected joy in a game. A good meal should make people happy. It should also make people think. And I think that this is a great summary of what a good game should do as well. I've got another artist, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario Brothers, the inventor of the Wii, who made computer games, video games, accessible to all of us, to grandmothers and little kids, as opposed to males between the ages of 14 and 35. And he says, what if on a crowded street you look up and see something that, given what we know, should not be there? You either shake your head and dismiss it, or you accept that there is much more to the world than we think. Perhaps it is really a doorway to another place. If you choose to go inside, you may find many unexpected things. Sounds very much like Ferran, doesn't it? Of course, Miyamoto is responsible for Mario. Super Mario, Mario Brothers has been featured in 200 games, more than 200 million copies sold. It's the best-selling video game series ever, and you can see the evolution of Mario. Now, Mario, like Pac-Man, consumes in order to get stronger. And what he consumes are mushrooms. Now, some people could argue that the mushrooms, he doesn't exactly eat them, and maybe they're not really food. They might be of the psychedelic variety. But at any rate, the same theme, it follows through. Mario consumes the mushrooms, and it gives him a turbo boost, a power-up, health, extra life. And I've got an example of Mario and his mushrooms right here. So there he is. He's jumping and he's gathering his coins, and he's jumping as he gets coins. He can jump. There's a big jump and some more coins. That's good. So now here's a little mushroom, which he doesn't exactly eat. He jumps on it, and now that's going to give him some strength to bump his head against a big mushroom. And then look what happens. He gets into this mushroom and he inhales it. Whoo! And there he is, big Mario, and he's so energetic, and that's what happened to Mario. Another relationship between food and video games is that the video game itself, the very popular video games, have inspired all kinds of different foods. So if you look at that cake, that birthday cake is the exact birthday cake I got for my 7-year-old son on his birthday. It's a Pac-Man birthday cake. And look at there's Pac-Man cereal, Pac-Man cheese, inspirations of Pac-Man pancakes and quiches, and away we go. Mario 2 inspired a lot of food. This is a Mario bento box. There's bubble gum. There's mushroom candies. So you're seeing that the food in the game moves out of the game into the real world, and there's a sort of symbiotic relationship between food and video games. Of course, there's a relationship, too, between the food in the game and characters in the game, and advertising, which I'm going to be talking a lot about a little bit later on. Action games are really interesting. From the early ones even till the later ones, the beat-em-up fighting games. Usually the hero, the character, needs some food, or else he's lost. It's always, not always a he, usually he loses strength, and he can't win over his enemy. So, I'll show you some of these games. In Final Fight, we've got roast turkey. So can you imagine in the middle of a fight, you have to find this turkey. In Castlevania, there's pot roast. And the pot roast, of course, is hidden in castle walls. So he has to beat down the walls in order to extract this meat, to be able to eat it, to be strong. Apples in Streets of Rage, fruit in Castle Crashers, and it continues. A couple of other food action games. One is called Fast Food, which is kind of an evolution of Mario. These big lips floating around on the screen, and you have to eat up as much junk food as possible in order to get stronger. Food Fight, an Atari game. It's basically, here's the chefs are entering the world. You, as a little character, have to run and get the ice cream cone that's right there. And as you run, these nasty chefs are chasing you, and they're throwing food at you, and you have to gather up the food and throw it at them first. Okay, so this theme continues about food for health and energy and power and survival in the role-playing games. These are all famous ones, from Zelda to Diablo to Baldur's Gate Oblivion. RuneScape, for instance, you can collect in your inventory up to 28 cooked sharks, and you carry them around to give you strength at that right moment. 28 sharks, can you imagine? And then, of course, World of Warcraft, extremely popular, massively multiplayer online role-playing game, now has 11 million paying subscribers. It's extremely addictive. This is a game that a lot of parents of teenage boys and girls worry about because they don't, once they get involved in it, it's hard to stop. Food is a source of health and energy and power, but in it, it's very interesting. It's hunted, the food is hunted, it's collected, it's bought, it's sold, and it's actually cooked, it's prepared. And cooking becomes a trade, one of the trades that can be learned, and you can use cooking to restore health and aid in combat, and recipes in this game are a source of power. So here we have a character going to a merchant, a vendor, and this vendor is selling various kinds of spices and water and things like that. Here are some of the kinds of food items. Here's a bit of an inventory of food items that you can pick up: roasted boar meat, moon grazed tenderloin. It sounds like the tasting demos we had yesterday. And here is another vendor, and what she's selling here are recipes for dragon breath chili, which will allow you belch flame at your enemies for a certain amount of time in the game. You can learn cooking as a skill. You can get a daily quest, a cooking quest, which is a way to gain experience, earn gold, learn new recipes, win awards, and earn reputation. So you see, food and video games have a great relationship. And then if you move on to sort of online games, you move from the role-playing games to cooking games. I did a Google search on the images in Google for, I put in cooking plus games, and there was over 6 million, almost 7 million hits just of images, right? We've heard about Burger Time, which was mentioned earlier today. Here you have to create a hamburger. You are a chef, you're the good guy, and you've got to create a hamburger by finding all of the items, and you've got to evade the bad guys, which for some reason are a fried egg and frankfurters and a pickle. So basically you're running against time and you're running against the bad guys. So I kind of looked at all of these games. I was so surprised to find there's so many of them. And I just very quickly found 18 different categories of cooking games: burger games, breakfast games, bakery games, cake games, egg games, fast food games, sushi games, sandwich games, kitchen games. And then there are a lot of games that are really operational games or time management games when you're either a waiter or a waitress or a server, or you own the restaurant and your job is to basically get the food out to your guests. So in terms of these food games, you can be a cupcake queen, a cooking mama, a barbecue hero, a sushi chef, a go-go gourmet. I mean, you can learn to play almost any kind of game for any kind of cuisine. There are over 10,000 free casual cooking games online, mainly for kids, but also for adults as well. There are over 300 cooking games for sale on Amazon right now. And they're not just in English. Almost every language, every cuisine has them, from Korean and Japanese to Chinese. One of my favorites is Yo Quiero Mi Sandwich Cubano. There's a Pizza Passion, which is an Italian love cooking game, and it goes on. As I mentioned, there's a lot of serving food, time management, waiter and restaurant owner games. Perhaps the most famous one is Diner Dash, and there have been various iterations of that. And then you turn to Facebook, social games. There are so many restaurant owner games on Facebook. You would be amazed. Zynga, who obviously is the leader of social games on Facebook, they have Cafe World, Playfish, which was acquired by Electronic Arts. They have Restaurant City, Cupcake Cafe. You run a cupcake restaurant. One of my favorites is Baby Restaurant, where not only do you manage a restaurant, you manage your babies at the same time. And My Restaurant, you also can run a bar. And the social game, you invite your friends to play, and your friends can work in your restaurant, and that unlocks more power for you and wealth, and that's how they work. Now, when you think about it, though, the most popular social game of all time is Farmville. It now, I think, has 35 million users, but at its height, it was over 80 million users. I mean, it's based on food, too. It's growing food, right? It's harvesting food. And I don't have time to talk about it, but I could. at length. And then I just started to look at how expansive this is. Perhaps the third most popular kind of game on Facebook, social game, after making restaurants and growing stuff, is feeding pets. So there's Petville and Pet Society and Pet City, and there's also a lot of games for kids that starts off with Tamagotchi in Japan, where you have your little pet, and you carry it around with you, and you have to make sure you feed it regularly, or else it dies. And Club Penguin is the same. Neopets, right here, actually you feed your pets, but you have to feed them. There's advertising in the game, so you can feed them McDonald's hamburgers or Rice Krispies, and so we're going to, as I said, we're going to talk a lot more about advertising in games. There's also feeding fish. There's all the Fishville games and Fish Island and Happy Aquarium and Insane Aquarium. I mean, quite. What's going on here, people? There's a lot of feeding of fish and animals and people in games. And then, of course, the civilization games or the simulation games, where you have to feed a whole society. You're responsible for the strategy for keeping your society growing. And whether it's Sid Meier's Revolution or Will Wright's Sims and SimCity, and now there's the social Sims that are on Facebook that are more popular now than Farmville. So it really is an important part. And in the Sims, you can actually get, your Sims can get pregnant, as you can see right here. The poor guy is quite surprised. And then you have a baby, and then of course you have to feed the baby and take care of the baby. So food and video games continue to have an interesting role. And then you move into the active gaming arena with the Wii and the Kinect. And there are all of these games, and some of them are game shows like Iron Chef. Another one is Cook or Be Cooked. And you basically are competing, but these games, you use the remote, the device, the remote and the nunchuck, or else you use your body, and you hack and you cut and you peel and you mix and you break eggs against time usually to create all of these recipes. And the question is, why are these cooking games so popular when you don't get to eat? As Sebastian was asking me yesterday, you don't get to eat anything at the end, right? You're just, but they are incredibly popular. This whole notion of cutting food and making food. What's going on with recipes? One of my favorites is the Fruit Ninja on the Kinect. And I'll give you sort of a little taste, taste of what's going on. This is not eating food. This is slashing food. So here we have the kid who's using his whole body to cut food with his hand. He's a ninja. He's practicing up to be a ninja by slicing food on the screen, right? The object is slash fruit with your hands, and watch his feet too. Coming up. See, here he goes. Anyhow, he's getting a lot of exercise, but that's another use of food in games. Perhaps the most, to my mind, nefarious relationship between food and games is the way advertising is now being used in games. Because as we live in this world of TiVo, and you can block your pop-ups, and there's satellite radios without commercials, it's getting really hard to reach people with ads. So immersive advertising in games offers the promise to collapse the boundaries between content and commercials. So I already mentioned the Neopets game, where you can buy McDonald's hamburgers for your pet. But there's also games that McDonald's sponsor within the game, and the idea is to search for lost McNuggets. You get points, and with the points you get your parents to take you to McDonald's, and McDonald's gives you a toy, and then you get your parents to buy you the hamburgers and French fries. A very popular form of game advertising is advergaming, and that's when a company sponsors a game in order to bring people to their website with the promise of free prizes or fun or whatever it is, a campaign. I believe Telefonica had one with a lottery about winning a Porsche last year, and there are many, many kinds of them. Food manufacturers are very, very big on advergaming, and they use the social network, so users invite their friends to participate, and they get more points, and then the marketers are accumulating databases that can target their customers, potential customers. And as I mentioned, the food companies are very big in advergaming. The other area that's really growing is in-game advertising, a little bit different from advergaming. So you can see the McDonald's sign. This is a screenshot from FIFA Soccer. and you're a company, you pay to have a billboard, a virtual billboard inside the game. Sony EverQuest with their Sony and their Sony Online has a game called EverQuest, and at a certain point you could type the word pizza, and then you'd go to a screen where you could order a pizza online without even getting up from your chair, and so that was another kind of use of advertising within games. And we're moving into a lot of product placement. So you're playing a game and you can choose to drive an Audi car within the game, or you can, so that you can see how the gaming experience is now becoming. The advertising is becoming the content within the game, and the future direction is, rather than having these static signs as billboards, you'll be targeted, and based on your demographics or your psychographics or your geographical location, you're going to get specific ads for yourself. So that's the direction that things are going in. So based on that. Ordering pizza within EverQuest, the question becomes, well, what do gamers eat? And gamers are notorious for eating junk food. There is a South Park episode that's very famous about the characters playing World of Warcraft, and the kid is yelling, "Mom, I need more Hot Pockets," because he has to fuel himself as he plays the game. So in terms of what do gamers eat, well, here's a gamer on one side, and that's his character on the other, looking a little different. Generally, our avatars are thinner than ourselves, but the question is, I have to ask is, do you think that video games are good for us? And then the question that also comes up right after, since I'm talking about food and video games, is food good for us? And I think the answer is exactly the same, of course, and of course not, depending on how we use it. So the positive effects of video games, I think we know them. They're improved cognitive skills and problem-solving ability, hand-eye coordination. A study that surgeons who play video games actually are more proficient at surgery. Kind of interesting. There's better attention performance. They may provide a socially acceptable outlet for violence and aggression. Now, this is controversial because there is other research that shows that they lead to more expressions of aggression. And they also can promote collaboration and social skills in multiplayer social games in particular. Although, as I say, the research is conflicting because other studies show that gamers who play violent or aggressive games are less likely to give to charities and exhibit more antisocial behavior. So a lot more research needs to be done. There are other negative effects, too, in terms of their addictive, and the one that I'm really concerned about, because it does relate to food, is they can lead to obesity and lack of exercise in kids. And when you really look at it and analyze the way food's used in video games, I believe that the messages in games are basically unhealthy. We start off with Pac-Man is consuming food, and the characters, the heroes, are consuming food in order to get health and strength and power. But the implicit messages are eat as much and quickly as you can and as quickly as you can. Well, eat while you're fighting, or fight while you're eating. Those are messages. Eat non-nutritious food. Eat suspect food, like food that's been crumbling in dungeons and castles for centuries. Eat junk food, right? And worst of all, the in-game advertising, which manipulates kids, it promotes overconsumption, leading to obesity, diabetes, those kinds of things. So, the question is, can anything be done to promote healthy eating in games? And is education the answer? And can we create educational games to promote health and good eating habits? We know that games can be powerful learning tools. They support different learning styles. They're self-directed, interactive. They provide immediate feedback, improve our cognition. They focus attention, and they can give you a whole systems immersive approach to learning, and they're engaging and fun. The problem is that so many teachers and advertisers and people who are communicators think the only way to reach kids these days are through games. Take all the curriculum and make it into a game. As a result, we have thousands of terrible games that suck, that teachers are feeding to kids to say, here, play this game and learn science, right? And kids know when it's not a real game. And you think about the the didacticism and the heavy-handedness and the clumsiness of these so-called educational games or serious games. You think about it, and they're not fun. I mean, what's really missing is that game designers are not making them. The people who know about gameplay aren't making the games. So I've been trying to work in this area. I've been looking at where there's some great games in education. Matter of fact, I started a little company that's looking at how can we transform games about healthy eating, healthy lifestyles that are fun first, made by game designers as opposed to educators. And I'll just show you a very quick little game that we did. It was called Nom Nom Rider. And it came out with the Windows 7 mobile phone. And for the first month, it was the top downloaded. Whoa, come on, baby. Can I show you this? Slowly, 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 slowly. All right, now, in this game, you're a little rider, and you're riding down a rainbow, and there's food coming at you, and the whole idea is to get your little guy in front of the healthy food and avoid the junk food, and if you hit the junk food, you get fatter and slower, and if you hit the good food, you get more dynamic, and you can move faster. So it's just a very simple game. It's kind of fun. And it contrasts to this game, which is called Foodies. It's available on the iPhone, very popular. And the whole idea is that this guy here, he proposes to his beloved woman, and she says, well, I like chubbier boys. You're not fat enough for me. So please get fat, and then I'll consider it. So what you have to do is you play the game by having him collide with cupcakes and donuts and food, and the more non-nutritious the food, the fatter he gets. And so those are the two kinds of messages. And so what I'm thinking about is, isn't it possible now with the technology we've got and the game designers we have to be able to design games so that they're as good as World of Warcraft, or they have the kind of budgets behind them that we invest in them, and they have the production value. So in the middle of the game, you need to do something that's physical, or you have something, you get points for actually completing something that promotes a healthy attitude towards games, towards food. So the point is, we've just barely begun in this particular area. And I like to end, ladies and gentlemen, again turning to one of the co-hosts of this conference and quote him again with a little liberty. A good meal and a good game should make people happy. It should also make people think. And when you look at it, if you combine art, curiosity, creativity, science, and magic to create new worlds for us to enter, we can create worlds which provide us with moments of unexpected joy and also make us think. Thanks.
Questions for Gerri? Well, people are
so I have a question for them. Do you think gastronomy is a game? It takes place in a special place. Let's see if I can get you back there. Yeah,
it's a pretty expensive game.
People love your food. They come back. I don't know. Come on, I can go back. There. It involves an interaction, you and the person who's eating the meal, right? And it definitely produces these unexpected moments of joy. So maybe that's the relationship between food and games.
Go ahead.
These shopping games,
yeah.
Do you think they'll ever get good enough to influence learning actual kitchen skills?
I loved your kitchen holodeck, right? And that's the utopic view, and I think that they will. Right now, to break an egg in Cooking Mama doesn't feel anything like breaking an egg at all. It's really clumsy and really frustrating, and you usually fail to break the egg. When you don't usually fail to break eggs in real life. So they're really clumsy. So I do think, as the sensors become much more refined, that we will get to being guided with a virtual mentor, a virtual sushi master to help us cook. The other question I have is, what is the fascination for these games to learn about assembling different kinds of cuisine in an electronic way? Why are they so engaging and attractive? I don't really know the answer to that question. Are we programmed to want to learn about preparing food, to learn about recipes? Is that something that's innate in humans? I don't know.
Something everybody understands.
Yeah, it's
Or they think
yeah.
they do.
Yeah, good.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.